I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with the answer before you move on. When was the last time you did something at work, creating something, completed something, showed up for something, and when it was done, the only thing you felt was satisfied? Not proud in the way you post about it, not relieved that it impressed someone, not anxious about whether it was good enough, just satisfied. Quietly, deeply, genuinely satisfied. If you had to think hard about that, if the answer didn't come fast and clear, that's the conversation we're having today. Because most people are not building work, they're building a resume. They're stacking proof, they're accumulating evidence that they are valuable, capable, and worthy of being seriously taken. And they are exhausted. Not from the work itself, from the constant audition. Today, we're going to talk about how to stop auditioning and start building. Building work that actually matters to you, work that is yours, rooted in your values, your skills, your identity, and your impact. Work that when you look back on it at the end of the day, the end of the year, the end of a life, makes you feel like you showed up. Not for the applause, for the thing itself. That's the episode. Let's go. So, welcome back to Purpose Over Paycheck. I'm Master Coach Troy, Master Coach, Manifestation Mentor, and someone who spent years building work that looked great on paper and felt hollow in my hands. If you've been following along with the last two episodes, we've been on a journey together. In one episode, we talked about the moment success stopped being enough. In the other episode, we drew the line between passion and purpose, energy versus responsibility. And today, we get to actually into the building. Because here's the thing, understanding that you want meaningful work in one thing, actually constructing it, designing it, protecting it, showing up for it, that's where most people get stuck. And I think part of the reason that they get stuck is because they've spent so long building work for other people's approval that they don't actually know what it looks like to build it for themselves. So today we're going to talk about four things: designing work around your values, escaping what I call achievement addiction, the difference between impact and income, and what I call the intersection, the place where your skills, your service, and your identity all meet. That's where meaningful work actually lives. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is value. And before you roll your eyes and think, okay, Troy, here comes that fluffy stuff, stay with me. Because I'm not talking about values the way a corporate retreat talks about values. I'm talking about something more raw and more personal than that. Your values are the things that, when violated, make you feel like a version of yourself you don't recognize. They're the things that, when honored, make you feel most alive, most real, and most like you. And here's what I've noticed in my coaching work. Most people can rattle off their values when asked: freedom, family, creativity, impact, growth. Those words come easily. What's harder, way harder, is looking at how you actually spend your working hours and asking, does this reflect those values at all? Because here's the disconnect that creates so much quiet suffering in people's careers. They say they value freedom, then they build their business around a model that chains them to a desk 12 hours a day. They say they value creativity, then they spend 80% of their work time on admin and logistics. They say they value impact, and then they optimize every decision for income instead. The values and the work don't match, and your nervous system knows it, even when your mind is trying to rationalize it. That low-grade restlessness, that Sunday night dread, that feeling of going through the motions even in work you once loved, that's the gap between your stated values and your lived reality trying to get your attention. Designing work around your values means closing the gap. Not perfectly. Life is complex. There are always constraints and compromises. But intentionally, with your values as the filter through which you make decisions about what to take on, what to say no to, how to construct your time, and what to build next. Let's make this practical. I want you to think about one value you hold deeply, just one. Maybe it's autonomy, the ability to make your own decisions about how and when and where you work. Now ask yourself, in your current work, what is one concrete thing that actively undermines that value? And what is one thing, even small, you could change, shift, or remove that would bring your daily reality one step closer to honoring it? That exercise, value gap, one small move, that's not a complete redesign. It's direction. And direction is where meaningful work begins. Okay, I need to talk about something that I think is one of the most underdiagnosed sources of emptiness in high achieving people. And I'm going to call it what it is: achievement addiction. Achievement addiction is what happens when the feeling of accomplishment becomes the primary thing you're chasing, more than the work itself, more than the impact of the work, more than any deeper sense of meaning. You're not building towards something. You're collecting proof that you are enough. And the cruel irony of achievement addiction is that it looks like ambition from the outside. People celebrate you for it. They hold you up as an example. They say, look how driven they are. Look how much they produced. Look at everything they've accomplished. And on the inside, you cannot stop. Not because you love what you're doing, because stopping feels like disappearing. I want to say that again because I think it's important. Achievement addiction is not about loving your work. It's about being terrified of what people will think or what you'll think of yourself if you slow down, step back, or choose something quieter and more meaningful over something louder and more impressive. Here's how you know if this is you. Ask yourself honestly, if a project or a goal you accomplished never got recognized by anyone, no likes, no praise, no promotion, no acknowledgement of any kind, would it still feel worth doing? Would you still feel proud of it? For someone living in purpose, the answer is usually yes. Maybe not immediately, but at their core, yes. The work meant something regardless. For someone in achievement addiction, the question creates anxiety because without the recognition, the achievement feels almost pointless. The whole architect was built on the audience, not the work. Now, I want to be careful here. This is not a character flaw. Achievement addiction usually develops for very real reasons. Maybe you grew up in an environment where love was conditional on performance. Maybe you survived by being the capable one. Excuse me. The responsible one, the one who always came through. Maybe you've been in industries or communities that measure human worth in output and credentials and rank. The world trains you to achieve for approval. That's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to notice it and to choose differently. Escaping achievement addiction doesn't mean stopping. It doesn't mean doing less or wanting less. It means shifting the source of your motivation from external validation to internal alignment. From what will this make people think of me to does this reflect who I actually am and what I'm actually here to do. That shift is not small. It is not quick, but it is the most liberating thing you will ever do for your relationship with your work. So, I want to have a real conversation about money and meaning because I think a lot of people carry an unspoken belief that they have to choose between the two. That meaningful work is either poorly paid or if it pays well, it must not be that meaningful. And I want to dismantle that. But I also want to be honest about something most purpose coaches won't say. First, income matters. Full stop. Anyone who tells you money doesn't matter has either never worried about it or has forgotten what that worry feels like. Your bills are real. Your family needs are real. Your desire for security, for options, for freedom, those are real. I'm not here to romanticize struggle or tell you to choose impact and trust that money will just show up. That is irresponsible advice. Income is required, but it is not the goal. And the moment you make income the goal, the primary metric, the scorecard, the measure of whether your work is working, you have handed your sense of meaning over to your bank account. And your bank account does not know what your soul needs. Here's the distinction I want you to hold. Income is the resource that makes meaningful work sustainable. Impact is the reason the work exists at all. You need both. But they are not the same thing. They don't deserve the same amount of weight in how you make decisions about your work. Let me say it plainly. Chasing income at the expense of impact will make you rich and empty. Chasing impact at the expense of any income will make you purposeful and broke. Neither of those is the goal. The goal, the thing I help people build toward, is work that creates real impact and generates sustainable income. Not one or the other, both. And the way you get there is not by optimizing your money first and hoping meaning shows up. It's by getting deeply clear on your impact, who you serve, what changes for them because of their work, of your work. Why does that matter? And then building an income model that sits on top of that clarity. Impact is the foundation. Income is the structure. You cannot build lasting structure on an empty lot. And here's what I've seen happen when people flip this. When they lead with income and bolt meaning onto the side as an afterthought, the money might come, but the work hollows out from the inside. They find themselves making more than they ever thought possible and feeling less alive than ever. That's not success. That's the emotional plateau that we talked in a previous episode. Dressed up, however, as a higher tax bracket. So the question is not, how do I make more money? The question is, what impact am I here to make? And how do I build something financially sustainable around that? That's the reframe. And everything changes when you make it. All right. I want to give you a framework, something you can actually use to map out where most meaningful work lives. I call it the intersection, and it has 3 points. Point 1, skill. What are you genuinely good at? Not what you think you should be good at, not what your desire says you're qualified for. What do you actually do well? The things that come naturally, the things people notice, the things you've developed over years without even trying that hard because they align with how you're wired. Skill is what you bring. It's your toolkit. And here's something important. Your skills are often so natural to you that you underestimate them. You think, well, anyone can do this, but they couldn't. What feels effortless to you is often extraordinary to someone else. Don't dismiss your skills because they feel easy. That ease is the signal, not the disqualifier. Point 2, service. Who do you serve? Not in the abstract, specifically. What kind of person, in what kind of situation, with what kind of need? Service is about your people, the one who needs what you have, the ones whose struggle keeps you up at night because you know you have something that could help. Service is also about your why, the impact side of what we talked about in the last segment. When you get clearer on who you serve and what actually changes for them because of your work, something shifts in how you show up. You stop performing for an audience and start showing up for a purpose. The work gets more real, more urgent, more meaningful. Point 3, identity. This is the one people skip, and that's the one that ties everything together. Identity is not just who you are right now, it's who you are becoming. It's the version of yourself you're growing toward. And meaningful work is not just work that uses your current skills and services, your current people. It's the work that actively shapes you into the person you're meant to be. This is what I mean when I talk about work that matters. It doesn't just produce outcomes into the world, it produces growth in you. You are different, more expanded, more rooted, more yourself, because you did the work. The work and your becomings are inseparable. Now, the intersection. Where these 3 points overlap is where your most meaningful work lives. When your skills are developed in service of people who genuinely need them, and when that service is aligned with the identity you're growing into, that is meaningful work. Not perfect work, not easy work, but work that matters. Work that holds up under pressure. Work that you can look back on and know I was showing up as myself for something real in a direction that mattered. Most people are missing one of the three. They have the skill but haven't gotten clear on who they serve. They're deeply service oriented, but building in direction that doesn't really reflect who they're becoming. They're growing into a new identity, but haven't updated their work to match it. So, where is your gap? That is the question to sit with. I want to tell you about a season in my life when I was doing all the right things and none of it felt like mine. I was in education, I was good at it, I cared about the kids, I cared about the work, and I genuinely making a difference in the room. But somewhere along the way, I'm not sure exactly when it happened, I started building my career more for the resume than for the mission. The next certification, the next leadership role, the recognition from the right people, the appearance of trajectory. And I kept adding things, the coaching practice on the side, the content, the podcast, the programs. Not because I had a clear vision, but because I was afraid that if I slowed down enough to ask what I actually wanted, I'd find out if I had been going in the wrong direction and wasted years. So I kept moving, kept building, kept achieving. And then one day, this was one of those quiet, ordinary days, nothing dramatic. I was sitting with a client in a coaching session and something clicked. Not in my head, in my chest. I was in the right seat. Not the educational leadership seat, not the achievement stacking seat, this seat. The one where someone sits across from me or across a screen, and they are ready to do the real work of becoming who they're supposed to be. And I'm the person who knows how to hold that space for them. That was my intersection. Skill, I know how to develop people, see themselves clearly, and move through what's holding them. Service, the people who are ready to stop performing and start living in alignment. Identity, the person I am becoming is a man who leads from purpose, who models what he teaches, who shows up with his whole self in service of transformation. I didn't get there by optimizing. I got there by getting honest, by stopping long enough to ask, what is the work that actually feels like mine? Not impressive, not safe, not the thing that gets the most applause. Mine. And when I started building from that place, everything changed. Not overnight, not without fear, but in the direction of something real. And that's what I want for you. Okay, so let's make this actionable. Because I don't want this episode to be something you feel good about for an hour and then forget. I want it to actually change something in how you work this week. Here are 3 moves I want you to make. Not someday, this week. Move number 1, do the values audit. Write down your top 3 values. Not the ones you think sound good, the ones that when you violate them make you feel sick. Then look at your work this past week, your calendar, your task list, your decisions you're making, and rate honestly on a scale of 1 to 10 how much of what you actually did reflected those values. Where's the gap? That gap is your starting point. Move 2. Identify one achievement you're proud of that nobody knows about. Something you did well, something you showed up fully for, something that mattered. That didn't get recognition, didn't get shared, didn't get applaud. If you can find one, notice how it feels to sit with that. If the pride is there without the audience, that's a signal. That's what intrinsic motivation feels like. Build more of your work in that direction. And if you can't find one, If everything meaningful you've done recently has been tied to external recognition, that's data too. That's the addiction showing you where it lives. Don't judge it, just see it. Move 3. Map your intersection. Take a piece of paper, actual paper, not a notes app. There's something about the pen to paper thing that slows you down in a good way, and draw 3 overlapping circles. Label them skill, service, identity. Fill in what you know right now. Don't try to be perfect, just honest. What do you notice in the middle, where all 3 overlap? What's missing from one of the circles? What surprised you? That map is the beginning of your design, not the finished product, the beginning. Meaningful work is not something you stumble into, it's something you build intentionally, repeatedly, with clarity about what matters, honesty about where you are, and courage to keep choosing the thing that feels like yours, even when the louder, safer, more impressive option is right there. You are capable of building work that matters, not just work that performs. Here's how I want to close this episode. We spent so much of our working lives building for other people's timelines, other people's metrics, other people's definitions of what matters. And we are tired, not from the effort, from the misalignment, from doing real work with a fake compass. What I'm asking you to do, starting today, starting this week, is to pick up your own compass, to design your work around what actually matters to you, not what's impressive, not what's safe, not what gets the most applause or the most likes or the most head nods in a boardroom. What matters to you, who you're becoming, what you want your work to have meant when you look back on it. That's the work. It's hard, and it's worth it. Your activation for this week is the 3 moves I gave you: the values audit, the quiet achievement, and the intersection map. Do all 3. Write them down. And if you want to share what you find, direct message me. I genuinely want to know, not to celebrate you publicly, because I care about what you're building. And if you're ready to stop doing this work alone, if you're ready to have a real partner in building work that actually reflects who you are and where you're going, that's what coaching with me looks like. The link is in the show notes. Let's talk. Remember, you weren't built to audition for a whole new life. You were built to create something that matters. Go build it, my friend. All right. I'm Coach Troy. This is Purpose Over Paycheck. This episode is wrapped up, and I'll see you in the next episode.